So tell me, V, um, what do you do when a person is just not cutting it? So let's say a developer is just not cutting it.
Mm,
And not cutting it in the sense, I guess it doesn't really matter how they're not cutting it. Yeah, actually, it does. So let's say someone is like super kind,
mm,
super communicative, fits culture. Fits culture is kind of I shouldn't say that fits culture because um, it's not really what I mean. What I mean is someone that is getting along well with everyone, getting along well with clients, communicates well, super nice person, but there seem to be not at the programming level that we need.
mm.
How do you face that? How does V face that?
V has a team to help me with that.
Yeah.
The situation's really tough when it does happen. It has happened a couple of times. A couple of times that would have been great to avoid altogether.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, as we discussed earlier, sometimes seems to people say that they're really good technically. We hired them, they pass the test, but then when it comes to executing, they're not delivering what the expectations that they did set for us. So usually we will discover very early on whether a person is cutting it or not. And the way that we're going to discover this is that usually it's very hard to get information out of them. It's always very unclear as to when we have a stand up with them. And we're like, you're working on task number 1, task number 2, and task number 3. This is your goal for this week to accomplish. So they're going to be working on task number 1, and then a little bit of task number 2, and then task number 3, and there's no dependencies within those 3 tasks. So there's no reason why it should have been worked on, at 3 different times.
Mm-hmm.
Usually in software, it's always not, when we work on in software development. I mean, at least when you work on task number 1, you finish it, and then task number 2, kind of waterfall type of deal. But then sometimes it's not always possible in software development because of the dependencies. But
Okay.
in a very simple situation where task number 1, task number 2, task number 3 are really well separated. And then we have stand up with them, and then we ask them to give us, okay, so you went over the estimate, what happened? It's very unclear to try to understand how and why they're going over the estimate, or and some of them are very good at, saying what they've done, and it's very clear as to why they weren't able to deploy a task, for example. But we know from communication with management and the output that they produce, and if they have blockers or anything like that, like blockers that a senior developer shouldn't have, because we have
Mm-hmm.
the resources in place. So what I mean by that is, like, we have pod leaders, we have a development channel with 53 developers in it, we have project managers, we have system administrators. There is no reason for you to be stuck on a task more than 30 minutes to an hour, right? So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they will reach out to these people, to our support system, and will ask questions. Sometimes they will ask their pod leaders very basic questions, and then we can know from there those very basic questions. But then again, you can ask basic questions,
Yeah.
but then it's more like the repetitive of just asking things that it's common sense and you should know. So this is kind of technically, that's kind of how we can identify it. And then project management wise as well, as I said, sometimes it's unclear, sometimes it's clear. And the thing is, like, we don't measure performance by output. That's
Mm-hmm.
not the right thing to do
Mm-hmm.
here. That's not how we manage our people. But then, so that's kind of how we're going to identify as a team whether this person is cutting it or not. And then once we have those red flags that starts to pop up, we're gonna, there's always code review
Mm-hmm.
that's in place. And then the pod leaders will be able to identify as well whether that's really good code or if there's a lot of feedback. And, that's kind of how we, if someone is junior, that's kind of like what I was referring to is just if someone is too junior. But there are also other, and you can maybe clarify on what you want me to provide an answer on, but sometimes senior developers, they're not going to get either, so
They're not cutting it either.
no, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably the challenging part. So if we have a new resource that we've just hired, they're on their first project, and there's red flags, then that's something there's a lot of focus put on that situation. Because the person has no track record, right? So they passed our tests, they passed our interviews, but I've seen it where people just test well, and then when they get into the real world, for some reason they just can't cut it. Do you ever? So just to address that, do you ever sometimes say, okay, well maybe this is not the right project for that person, and try them on something else, type of thing?
Yeah. Okay. It has happened many times actually, because
with new people only, or with people that have been with us for a few years?
Yeah, for people that have been with us for a few years, and especially if they have been with us for a few years, we know, that they can deliver quality code, and that they can get along really well with their clients. We're not asking for much. Very simple. But it does happen, especially like a situation that happened recently where there was a clash with a developer and a client. Well, I know our developer is able to deliver. And
they're proven resource over years.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So the thing is, like, client isn't always right. So I'm kind of like the devil's advocate. I'm here to make sure that that we deliver to our client and that we serve them well. But our employees is also being heard in all of this, if there's an issue or anything like that. So, and clearly this was not a good fit. So we kind of, before, affecting our client relationship, we decided to pull this developer out of the project.
So the client was right.
In this case, I agree to disagree. But there was not a fit. There was a fit problem.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
So,
okay, cool.
So there was a
there
fit
wasn't
problem.
a fit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it was better that way, and the client was very happy, and the developer was really happy. So
nice.
It was a win-win situation in this event.
What happens when you can't? No, how can I say that? So let's say we have a new developer just got put onto a project, as not he or she's not cutting it. What's the process? Because it's important for potential employees of Simply PHP to know, right? Like how do we deal with something like that? So do you like once? Let's cut right to the chase. So once it's determined that this developer is not cutting it on this project, now this developer is brand new with us.
Yeah.
No track record.
Yeah.
Tested well, hired well.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I will first be talking to this developer and kind of just asking them how they're going on the project and kind of just getting their side of the story.
No, let's pretend that that's already all done.
Already done.
Yeah.
Oh,
so now
okay.
we're telling the client, hey, we're rotating that person out because they're not a good fit. Now, what do? Do you let that resource go? Do you put them on another project to test them out? Like, how does it work?
Well, depending of what they told me, we will, and from everything else, all of the information that was gathered from the tech team and the management team, we will then decide whether we should give this person another chance or not.
Okay, yeah. So if they can't, if it's determined that they can't do basic stuff, then you're like, okay, no. Or if a more senior person or another person that we know has a good track record with us takes a look at the code and says no, then obviously we let them go because it's not fair to keep them.
No.
It's not fair for anyone.
No, because they're not going to grow.
Yeah.
And there's no benefit. It goes both ways. So they're not gonna. We don't have the business model to be able to train a developer to become.
Yeah, we hire them already trained.
Exactly. Because and especially for StaffOps as well, what we were talking earlier too. our client's expectation is that we're gonna be able to deliver resources that are ready to get up and running on their project and kind of just, yes, of course they're gonna have questions, but not basic questions, you know. But they're gonna be able to navigate the code and to have a quick learning curve.
Okay. Yeah, I'm thankful that doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Yeah.
And
We're not perfect.
has it ever happened that, okay, so let's say that the person is not cutting it on a project and they're brand new with Simply PHP. Has it ever happened that you took that person off of that project, put he or she on another one, and they throve? They did really well? Has that ever happened? Or has it always been, you know what, we should have let them go at the beginning? Be honest.
I'm trying to think. I
Okay.
think this is something I would remember.
Okay.
I don't think it has ever happened. Usually when we have red flags, usually those red flags are usually confirmed, but we always wait a little bit just to give the person a chance to be able to succeed with us.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
I remember it happening in the past where definitely on more than one occasion where
Yeah.
we were thinking, you know what, this person's not working out with us, and for whatever reason we gave them another chance, and then they ended up thriving.
That's good.
So it's
But
it's definitely
recently,
happened.
I wasn't sure. I remember I had red flags about someone that we just hired,
Oh yeah.
and those were pretty big red flags. And then we waited a couple of days, and then that developer was up and running, and then now we don't like the client is super happy.
Oh, nice.
So yeah,
That's
so
cool.
that's what I mean. Like sometimes just giving it time for this person to be able to kind of, because they're new with the company as well, and they always
Yeah.
majority of people have this pressure that they have to deliver and show what they're made out of, you know.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure that they put on themselves as well. So that's why sometimes just a little bit of time is what's going to change the course of things.
Yeah, nice. That's
Yeah.
good to know. That's
Yeah.
good to know that we don't like overreact and have any knee-jerk reactions to.
No, we're all human beings, right? And so if it's not working somewhere, we're gonna be looking at making sure that maybe our processes are not is not working for this person. So we always try to make it work until
Nice.
we can no longer make it work.
Yeah. All right.